Once the training session has been created, with the software connected to the device, it is now possible to start collecting a new training exercise. A training exercise consists in a number of consecutive weightliftings performed with the same load. From the menu, the user can choose to create a new training exercise. As soon as this voice is selected, the acquisition window of the training exercise will pop up. There are two pieces of information that the software requires before activating the Start button. First, we need to enter the load in kilograms that we're going to lift. In this case, we're going to use 100 kilograms. Then we need to input whether we're going to use a machine or a weight bar. In this case, as you can see, we're going to use a leg press, so we have to select the machine. And as soon as the acquisition mode has been selected, the Start button will be activated. Before to start collecting data, of course, we need to fix the device contained in its magnetic pocket on the weight stack of the machine. The exercise we're going to perform will be characterized by consecutive eccentric and concentric movements, starting from an initial position with knees fully extended, going down to 90 degrees of flexion, and back to the initial position again. As soon as the user presses the Start button, the software will generate a beep that tells the athlete that he can start to perform the movement. If a concentric phase has been performed, as soon as the software detects a static condition, another beep will be generated, indicating that the repetition just concluded has been processed, showing results in real time, and another repetition can be performed. A second solution in using FreePower is to perform repetition characterized by a concentric movement only. In this case, from the initial position, after the first beep generated by pressing the Start button, the athlete goes down to 90 degrees of knee flexion and stops. Whenever he is ready, he can perform the concentric movement. And as soon as he stops again, the software will detect the static condition, generating another beep, and so on. So, with FreePower, it is possible either to perform consecutive eccentric and concentric movements, or to isolate and perform the concentric movement only. The necessary condition for the software to generate the beep is to identify a static condition after a repetition characterized at least by the concentric phase. Every time the stop button is pressed, the training exercise will be automatically created and stored in the database tree. With FreePower training, a training exercise can be performed by setting a training threshold, represented by a value of power that the user can choose, for instance, from the average power exerted in a previously performed training exercise. In this case, we can either choose the maximum power exerted in the first training exercise, or we can take the average power exerted in this series of repetition, 470 watts in this case. So a new training exercise can be created. The athlete is going to lift again the same load as before, 100 kilograms, but this time we can set the average power exerted in the first training exercise as a reference value. Upper and lower limits represent by default the 10% of the power threshold and can be modified by the user. In this case, the exerted power at every repetition will be showed using a visual biofeedback. In green, we're going to have repetitions within the range, in yellow above, and in red, going to have repetitions performed below the range, below the power threshold that we set.